Hey, William Jordan here, broadcasting live from beautiful downtown Newark, New Jersey. And this is Conscious Raising Art. Welcome to Kosmic-Kitchen Wednesday. We're going to change up a little bit, different type of digestion we're going to go into right now. We're going to go into a movie, The Oxbow Incident. Great movie. 1943, so it's a black and white. And, it's a black and white. Henry Fonda, Harry Morgan, and what's the other guy's name? Anthony Quinn. Yes, Anthony Quinn. And it's a young Anthony Quinn, but he's still got that vim and vigor, that fire, that liar. So now, here's the thing about the Oxbow incident. Let me give you a synopsis so we can talk about that in terms of Cosmic Kitchen Wednesday. What happens is, there's a report that one of the ranchers, cattle guys, has been murdered, shot in the head, and someone stole his cattle. And it starts off in the scene, and this is an interesting movie from the standpoint that it's all men in the cast. There are no women. Okay? That's very, like the 12-man jury thing, 12 Angry Men. It's the same type concept, all right? But anyway, the guy rides into the town, and the horse, he's all excited, so-and-so's been shot, and his best friend, and they're enough. Here's an interesting thing. How is it these guys are always at the bar in a restaurant? They herd cattle, but they're never with the cows. They're at the bar all day long. There's more guys, it seems like, at the bar than there are in the whole town. But that's a side point. But that's Hollywood. We have to suspend our imagination, suspend our reasoning and go into the imagination. So they're all these guys are at the bar, in the bar. And, so they're saying, well, look, my friend so-and-so just got killed, and I'm going to go get those guys. We're going to string them up. We're going to do this and do that. And one guy says, no, we should wait for the sheriff to come. The sheriff's out of town conveniently. He says, no. If we let the law get a hold of this, the guys will get off on a technicality, blah, 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 blah. Now, here it is back in the 1800s, and it's all my technicalities. That's not the way the law worked then. But in 1943, they put that in there, and we accept it as fact, right? So now, after much heated discussion, Henry Fonda goes to see on behalf of a man in the group who doesn't want them to go out and find these people. What he wants to do it by the book and wait for the law and order for the sheriff to come back. On behalf of him, Henry Fonda goes to the judge and asks the judge to come out and talk to the crowd and maybe ask them to, be reasonable. But the sheriff left, and he left his deputy in charge, who's a guy who wants to get it on. So the deputy says, look, I'm in charge here. I can deputize all these guys to form a posse, and we're going to go get these guys. Now, so they formed the posse. The guy who leads the posse is, I guess, he must have been a Confederate officer or something, and he has the best house in town. It's a White House. He's living large, and he has a son, and his son really doesn't follow in the father's footsteps, much like the situation in Four Feathers. So get into another good movie as well, like Four Feathers. The son is not like in the father. The father's an aggressive, macho man. He used to prove himself by doing all these things like, forming a posse, leading it, and finding the men. Now, before they leave out of town, another guy comes in and says, oh, I saw, some guys, with some cows, and they were driving down this trail. It must have been the guys we're looking for. They were going in such and such a direction. So they go out in that direction. They find these guys at night. They ride, they find them, and they, tie them up. They question them. They have cows, but there's no bill of sale. They have a pistol that belonged to the guy who allegedly was shot. So, therefore, that's conclusive proof. We're going to lynch him at dawn. And the guy says, look, I didn't do this, man. We didn't do this. We're innocent. I don't know anything about it. Yes, I did buy the cows from the guy. I don't have a receipt. But the guy was alive when I left, right? So now, what goes in between, what happens in the group divides. Some guys, a few guys, don't want to do this. Only 7 out of the group don't want to do it. The rest of them, to take a vote, they want to lynch these guys now at sunrise. So they do the lynching, and before the lynching, the youngest guy of the group was being lynched. He writes a letter to his wife explaining what happened and wishing her well and all that kind of stuff. And so now they lynch him. Everybody's going back, Oh, I forgot to tell you, the Confederate guy, his son doesn't want to do the whipping of the horse. In other words, they put him on the horse, they string him up at a tree, they're going to whip the horse when it comes time to lynch him. But his son doesn't want to do that, and the old man freaks out and calls him a chicken and all that kind of stuff. Now, deed is done. They're going back to town, and before they get back they meet the sheriff. And the sheriff tells them that the guy they thought was dead is not dead. He's with the doctor, he's recuperating. And number 2, the sheriff found the guys who really did it. Everybody's like, oh my God, what do we do? Right? So now they go back to town, and they're in at the bar again. I was at the bar, right? They're sitting around dousing their guilt with, shots. And apparently they took up a collection to give to the man's wife who has 2 children, so she can get back to Ohio or wherever they came from, because he came out there and bought some guy's spread that was dilapidated, but they were going to redo it, right? So anyway, they're drinking their sorrows down, they collect the money, and in the meantime, the Confederate guy, he goes back to his house, his big white house at the end of the top of this hill. He's at the top of the hill, right, in the street that goes up. At the top, his son comes up, and he locks his son out. He won't let his son in the house. And the son gives him this, what do you think? I never wanted to do what you wanted me to do. It wasn't right. Look at you now. You killed this man wrongly, blah, 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 blah. So now, because the Confederate officer guy, the colonel, whatever he is, did this dastardly deed because he was the ringleader. His son says, look, you knew they were innocent, but you wanted to go ahead and do it anyway. You wouldn't give them a chance. But you did it anyway. You riled the people up and made them do it. So now the colonel goes into his office and blows his brains out. Bam! He's done. Back at the bar, Henry Fonda and Harry Morgan, they're like, they mount up and they're heading out of town to go to give the money back to the widow, the lady whose husband was hung. That's the story. But of course, you see all the implications that are involved in this story, right? And I bring it up because it's food for thought. The way we live today is similar, maybe even worse, because we have all this media stuff. Everyone's everyone's empowered to believe whatever they want, even without facts. And sometimes the facts you can't trust, right? Like in 1984, who knows what a fact is anymore, right? But everyone knows that they're right, just like the mob. I know he's right. I know the Republicans are wrong. I know the Democrats are wrong. I know. Everybody can't be wrong wholeheartedly, Maybe 80%, 90%, but no one's perfectly bad. No one's perfectly good, right? So anyway, I'm trying to get across to you that it's a good movie. I'll put the link in the description below, and when you have some time, check it out. It's a classic movie, well worth the viewing. Good show. Gives us insight into the American psyche, the human psyche. It gives us insight into how we think about things. Sometimes we act without getting, let's say, for example, like, I'm going to translate this into another area that maybe you might not find interesting, but war is the same thing. We don't really know the people who are doing the transgressing, but we are hot to go into battle. Why, I don't know. Classic case would be the Spanish-American War. It was never conclusively proved that the Spanish detonated any device that blew up the battleship Maine. That was proven. But it was enough for the newspapers and the people who wanted to get into Cuba. It was enough to fire the flames to get the war going. And if you want, we can talk about that later. But what happened after the Spanish-American War, particularly in Cuba and in the Philippines, is atrocious. You would not want to be an American knowing what America did in the Philippines. It was disgusting. Disgusting. Right? And I'm just ashamed to say that I'm part of that type of legacy. Horrible, man. There's no justification. Equally as bad as what the nation has done to the indigenous people of this territory, this continent. Disgusting. But on a lighter note, that's what it is today. Kosmic-Kitchen. We're going to have food for thought in terms of a movie. The Oxbow Incident, Henry Fonda, Harry Morgan, and Anthony Quinn. Peace out. Ciao.